So, welcome to another episode of Resting Pitch Face. I am on today with Andy, who is our strategy director, and Laura, who is head of PR for Flaunt Digital as well.
Hello.
Hi.
So, we're going to be talking about our favourite topic, which is, of course, search and how the search landscape has changed and the digital universe has changed, I guess. But we are coming at it from a particular angle. So we're going straight in with how it's affected travel and tourism and the brands in that space and what they can be doing to better utilise the changes that have happened. So my first question for you both, because I think this is quite an interesting one to get people into the frame of mind of how their own experience of search has changed. How did you plan your last holiday?
I'll go first.
You go, yeah.
It's actually quite interesting. So, last trip was Japan, which was last autumn. It was 16 days, 5 different locations. So, lots of logistics, lots of travel. And that was the first big trip that predominantly used AI to plan the itinerary and a lot of that trip.
Interesting.
So, yeah, it was a bit of a different one. And I think what is also really interesting is prior to that, which was also last year and a big trip, went to Sri Lanka. But that was through trail finders. So, completely different experience. It was going in store. It was having them kind of, plan it out, have that personalised itinerary and approach, working with the experts. So, yeah, very different travel planning.
Were you just going there for inspiration, or were you also led by AI to say, like, where's best to book tickets for a certain experience, or?
Yeah, so I think it definitely led certain experiences, and there was things that probably wouldn't have booked if it wasn't for AI, because it was suggesting things. For the Japan itinerary, which was really good. And then very much found kind of social, the other big area. So kind of cross-checking things that had cropped up on Instagram, on TikTok.
Yep.
So yeah, there was a lot of different touch points and a lot of different research points for Japan particularly.
Interesting. Andy, how about you?
Yeah, my last trip was to the Amalfi Coast and Tuscany in Italy. And to be honest, it was mainly my wife who just was scrolling through Instagram and TikTok and came across amazing videos showing Positano, showing, places in Tuscany. And then all of a sudden I was told we're going there. So
Did you just have an inbox
then it was over
full of
to
them?
me to try and figure out where we could book our flights and where to stay. So, it was massively led by social.
Do you think that was led by visuals?
Oh, absolutely.
That was the draw.
Yeah. Video content, showcasing these amazing places. And to be honest, some of them actually are better on video than in person.
Yeah. It's like that expectation versus reality, isn't it?
But yeah, massively led by video content across social. And even just as simple as finding places. There's this place on the Amalfi Coast called Path of the Gods. And it's a trek up the mountainside, one side of the Amalfi Coast to the other. And we saw loads of amazing videos, loads of amazing views and scenery on socials from that before we went. And to be honest, that did live up, but we would never have known about that if we hadn't have come across it on social. Yeah. When we went onto Google and went onto other platforms to start looking for things to do, that didn't really come up as like a kind of must-see or must-do kind of excursion. So if we hadn't have seen that on social, we probably wouldn't have ever found it. And it was very tucked away, and you had to kind of go into this really like rural kind of back street to be able to start the Path of the Gods. So yeah, it was a bit off the beaten track as well.
Was a lot of the video content that you were looking at, was it creator-led or brand-led?
Creator.
Yeah,
definitely. There wasn't a huge amount of brand other than maybe some of the slightly glossier hotels that are kind of on the Amalfi Coast in particular. They have some fairly nice content, but you only really come across that when you start searching yourself for those destinations. But yeah, creator content was massive.
How do you both feel that that's changed? Like, I know obviously Laura, you like reference going from like travel agents and going through that path then to AI. But even just looking like, you know, anecdotally in like the last 5 years, like, you know, 5 years ago we weren't planning holidays with AI. Like that wasn't a thing. Like it's become, I would say that's only really come around in the last year. I think that people have had enough faith in platforms like that to actually let it dictate what they do in their free time, which, you know, that's a big thing.
Yeah, I think like Google Gemini have got something called Canvas, which is pretty much designed to plan your trip for you and create itineraries. That's its purpose. And I think right now a lot of people probably don't really know about that. But over the next couple of years, people will start using that more and more. But 5 years ago, I mean, people would just turn to Google. If I was booking a holiday 5 years ago, I'd go to Google and search for a destination, search for flights, accommodation. I'd do everything through Google and then end up on third-party sites to go and either read blogs or find information about places to stay or to visit. So it's massively changed.
It's also, I guess, you know, just the way that people treat holidays has changed a lot as well. You know, even sort of, you know, 8 to 10 years ago, I think it was less about finding those cool niche places that nobody's been to that you want to take amazing pictures. That was more like just want a beach. Just want a beach and some good food, and that's kind of it. And now we do have this more show off lifestyle where you want the nice pictures, you want to feel like you've got something to tell people about and show off about and create content around.
Yeah, I think it's those hidden gems and off the beaten track places.
That's such an Instagram hook, is that?
Exactly, like how many reels, you know, how many TikTok.
Yeah, do you know how many videos I've made of hidden gems?
There you go, yeah. But like you said, it's people wanting a unique and authentic holiday experience. It's not just going to the same places that everyone else has gone to doing that trip. It's, you know, having a slightly different approach and a slightly different view on what you want to get out of a holiday. And like you said, I think that has definitely changed.
Hugely. How do you think brands are best positioned then to tap into this? So knowing that there isn't really a set way that people now search for a holiday, there isn't that obvious funnel, obvious journey that they take. It's, you know, hundreds of touch points, potentially thousands of touch points that they're being bombarded with constantly before they even get to a stage where they're like considering somewhere or booking somewhere.
I think it's been visible in all of those different places and all of those different conversations. You need to understand where the traveller is doing their research, where they're going to for inspiration, and how you can be a part of that conversation. And it might not be the right thing to be on every platform, but it's understanding what makes sense for the brand and where people are going to be looking for that information that you can be part of that conversation, and where you can add value with expert content, with whatever, you know, content that you're best placed to produce. But it's making sure you're visible in those places, because that's where people are going for research, for inspiration.
But I guess the other opportunity there is they're not necessarily researching. They're just, you know, like, you are now in a world of social media, in a world of everything's on your phone, everything's in front of you. Half the time, things come up when you're not in a research phase. You're not in a, I want to book a holiday. Instead, it's being put in front of people constantly. And it can go one of two ways, as we know. Like, that can either be quite overwhelming for, you know, users, or it can be hugely inspirational. I think there's tips and tricks, and there's things that brands can do to hold that position much more strongly and get the right content in front of the right people that doesn't then feel like an annoyance or like, just another video in this vast space that they're in.
I think one brand that have done it really well are Airbnb, and I know that seems like a really simple one to call out.
Do you know, we've spoken about Airbnb on this podcast so many times, but it's because they're so good at what they do.
And their entire strategy, I mean, most travel brands will invest in like performance marketing channels. They'll go for bottom of funnel. They'll try and capture as many people at that point of contact where somebody's looking to convert, book a flight, book a hotel, a piece of accommodation, Airbnb kind of ripped up the playbook and said, you know what, we're not going to do that. We're going to structure our entire marketing strategy around creating experiences and invest only in brand building. And I mean, for me, if I'm thinking of going away now, I don't think about hotels. I think about where am I going to stay in an Airbnb?
Yeah,
what type of Airbnb do I want? I don't think about, I'm going to go to Booking.com or Expedia or any of these other kind of sites to go and book a hotel. So for me, Airbnb are the ones that have probably done kind of the most disruption in a very smart way.
They have a very strong PR presence as well, don't they? They've done some really, really cool PR activity that's been very newsworthy, sort of like activations around film releases or whatever else. I'm thinking of like the latest Wuthering Heights. They had like Kathy's room, didn't they?
Yeah, they've very much taken that experience offline and opened that up as more of a experiential experience that they've created. And yeah, like you said, Wuthering Heights, the Barbie house, they've jumped on those trending cultural moments as well. And I think it's interesting that, you know, Airbnb, it's the reviews you look at as well. It's the real people, it's the real experiences.
Yeah, it's more of a community.
Yeah, and you trust the people who are leaving those reviews. So it's part of that, real life experience of people who've been to that Airbnb, which again is a huge part of what people are looking for.
Yeah, massively. How else do you think digital PR plays into this then, particularly across travel and tourism? Obviously, you know, when it comes to holidays, people are, it's never a particularly small expense, especially not anymore. You know, gone are the days where you can do a quick, cheap weekend trip or whatever. It just doesn't really exist. And especially in a time like we have now where, you know, people's money has to work harder. Everybody's struggling a bit. Everybody's feeling the pinch. So investing money in a company for your holiday is a big deal.
Yeah. It's a big trust thing. You want to know that you're investing financially, you're investing emotionally, you want a good, you know, it's your annual leave or your spare time, you want a good experience off the back of it. And digital PR and PR is a huge part of that, because you've built up that trust, you've secured coverage and placements in relevant publications, you've built up authority in those spaces, and it's all part of the brand building before someone's actually booked. And you need to position yourself in the right way for people to trust you before they hit book and to feel reassured that they've got everything they need to be able to make that choice.
I think travel's no different to any other sector, really. If you recognise a brand and have an affiliation with that brand and have seen them in press, have seen them through, you know, social content, you're much more likely to convert with that brand than you are a brand that you've never heard of or seen before. Even if you went to Google and they outrank that brand, people will still select. And I think, you know, when we talk about changes to how people book and find holidays, destinations, travel, particularly with the rise of AI, all those trust signals are going to become more and more important. And the brands that invest in brand building and invest in those kind of PR authority building signals are the ones that are probably going to succeed.
It's not enough for you to say, we specialise in this.
Yeah.
You need someone else to be saying it on your behalf, and that's where PR comes in, and where, relevant coverage comes in, and third parties saying it on your behalf, or creators, influencers, social signals. It all plays a huge part in that.
If you were, you know, working with a brand right now and they had sort of minimal budgets, you know, they were just kind of starting out in this space, where would you say to put the money to start with? Creators, coverage?
I would go PR first. I would build up that, bank of credible sources of people talking about you in relevant publications as the foundation. And I think once you've built that, you can layer in influencers, collaborations that are only going to strengthen that. But I would always start with that layer of PR.
How are you seeing PR lean into more of the AI-led content as well?
It's definitely where the expert content comes in. So utilising in-house experts, people who have got a voice and an opinion on things that you can back up and have, AI needs to understand who you are, what you're about, what you specialise in, and the way to do that is expert-led content so that it understands the topics that you are experts in. So yeah, I think it's very much the expert-led content and where you're adding value that other brands, you've got something different to say or something that you just can't find anywhere else.
Myself and Laura were actually talking before we came in, and there's a study that we were looking at where it looks at the top 10 signals that influence AI overviews, AI mode on Google, and then ChatGPT performance. And 8 out of the 10 were directly linked to digital PR, whether that's from building brand demand, whether that's looking at the number of backlinks, whether that's looking at domain authority. 8 out of the 10 were related directly to digital PR. So, it's a huge influencing strategy on how well you perform.
How do you think then, Andy, that plays into the bigger search landscape? So in terms of that wider strategy and, that sort of omni-channel approach where, we are saying to people, you kind of need to hit a bit of everything at this point. How does that all come together?
Yeah, it's not easy for a lot of brands, particularly if you've got budget constraints. I think it's about, if you understand your audience and you can understand the exact target audience that you're wanting to bring in, you can start to map that to the channels that they will be influenced by, and you can start to create content natively for each platform where you can influence. This isn't about creating content for every single platform, doing every single strategy. This is about actually being quite targeted to do the right things for your brand to get you placed in organic search, get you across social, and get you in AI responses as well. So I think it's just about investing tactically and in the right places where your audience are actually going to engage and find that content.
100%. And I think, coming back to that sort of AI approach as well, I think, we know it's such a big thing now across any sector. And we've all just sort of referenced it, I know, Laura, you referenced it for your last holiday, it all came through that. And like even now when people are searching for things day to day, the phrase, I'll just ask ChatGPT, has kind of replaced Google it. So, this is one of those sectors that rely heavily on people searching and asking questions within that space, but knowing which questions are best placed on what platforms, I think is part of that, Definitely. You're not going to write well, you might, but you're less likely to write a full blog piece on your website that's finding like the best pastry in Paris. But on social, that would be a great video. And I think it's looking for those little nuances and understanding not just who the audience is, but also like the questions that are going to get their attention, that are going to fit into that feed that they're scrolling through, that are going to feel like they're part of it, but also enough to make people stop as well.
Yeah, I think if you think about the user journey, at the top of funnel, keyword research is never going to cover absolutely everything that a potential audience is going to look
That'd
for.
Be nice, wouldn't it?
Because there's so many different topics around going on holiday that somebody might look at. Not just the classic travel and accommodation, but places to eat, places to see, those hidden gems and spots that people want to find that maybe don't come up in your regular search. So, I think some of those definitely don't tie themselves to written content natively. Like that isn't the way that people will want to engage with that type of content. They'll be looking for video first content. They'll be looking for a summary in an AI platform to make a recommendation. So yeah, it's completely different to what it was a couple of years ago even.
Have either of you ever turned to Reddit for travel?
I've not. But there are a lot of subreddits around travel.
Loads.
Yeah.
I mean, there's subreddits for everything.
There is, yeah.
But obviously we know now that, LLMs, Google, they all cite Reddit heavily. They're relying on that sort of, first-hand experience, the more conversational copy that's coming out of there, and, the more first-hand stuff as well. It's weird, though, because when you ask people, I don't know many people that go and necessarily search Reddit for answers to things. I think maybe younger generations.
Yeah, I haven't used it for travel specifically. I think there's been other questions, more product-specific questions that I've gone to Reddit for. But yeah, it's not one that I've gone to either for travel.
I've not. No, I think I have seen, like in AI overviews, when I've been searching for travel-related terms, a lot of content around almost like review content from Reddit is pulled through.
Yeah.
And I think that's the power of Reddit. It's real users and real visitors and guests' feedback and thoughts on a location or something travel related that is actually where Reddit has its strength. And it's not dominated by brands, it's real people at the moment. And I think that's why it's so heavily cited, because
it's genuine.
Other than Google and ChatGPT paying Reddit for access to all the information, that's separate. But
I mean, it helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think the fact that there's just so much kind of real world user generated content on there, advice, opinions. I mean, for travel in particular, when we talk about like those hidden gems and bits like that, Reddit naturally falls into that.
Yeah.
That and social kind of work together almost.
So, Andy, one thing that we talk about a lot, and I know you're going to cover this quite heavily in the webinar that we've got coming up, is zero-click search.
Yep.
How do you think that's going to affect this industry? Because it's quite a tricky one. Like, surely there's always going to be a conversion somewhere. There's going to be a user landing on a travel website because they've got a book at some point. Or is that all going to come into AI at some point?
Well, right now, it's not just AI, but I think if we future gaze in the next, 3 to 4 years, think how far AI has come in the last 24 months.
Wild.
I mean, it's huge. And if we think about the amount of investment going into AI, particularly from the likes of Google, which, everything they're doing at the moment is AI first.
Mm-hmm.
If we think about where it could go in the next 3 or 4 years, I think it's quite scary, to be honest. And also, audiences are adopting AI. It's not necessarily replacing search at this point in time. It's been added as a secondary platform to search and find content on. But I think, Google, ChatGPT, they've got things like agentic commerce, which at the moment is predominantly for physical products. But Google are already starting to roll out integrations with Expedia, Booking.com, essentially the Expedia group, where you can, through AI, instantaneously book accommodation without ever leaving Gemini or AI mode, and it will connect with Expedia, Booking.com, Hotels.com to actually book that accommodation with the details you've put in to your prompt and with the details it has saved on your user account. So I think that's very much the direction of travel with AI, that actually you'll be able to book your flights, you'll be able to book your accommodation, you'll be able to book that hire car, you'll be able to book your transfers, you'll be able to make a table reservation at the restaurant that you want to go to, all without ever visiting a third-party website, and
Literally
you'll stay within that AI ecosystem. And I don't think that's too far away with the advancement and the speed of things.
I think the technology's not far away, but I'm not sure the trust from an audience is there yet.
Not yet, but I think with anything, trust grows. If you think about when Google first launched, it wasn't a trusted source, and look where we are today.
No, but I think there is bigger wariness in an audience around booking a flight than there is around buying a jumper.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot longer to
Yeah.
get that trust from people, where if you're booking flights for a family of 4, say, you're spending thousands of pounds at that point. If you're booking a week's holiday for a family, that's thousands of pounds. It's a lot of trust to put in something, and people always have wariness around booking travel stuff. It's always that thing of like, pay on your credit card or whatever else. So the technology might be there, but I think there's a lot that brands are going to have to put into building that trust that these platforms can do it as well as they can as well.
Definitely. Yeah. I think that trust will come at a faster pace with younger demographics, because they are natively growing up with those AI platforms, and it'll be more of an ecosystem that they're used to being within, and that trust will grow quicker than potentially slightly older demographics. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it's adopted.
I guess it's that like obvious like example where say like my parents or like my grandparents would want to go to definitely my grandparents would want to go to like a travel agent. And it's taken my grandma ages to agree to like book a flight online. It would always be like, no, got to go book it in person, got to do all that, do all the paperwork and everything like that. Whereas I don't think I've ever stepped foot in a travel agent in my life. Like, my first reaction would be to go online.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just the next natural shift, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But I think even if you look at, I'm pretty sure it's Expedia that have it, they have like a AI agent on their site where actually you don't have to go through the traditional process of searching through the usual interface on Expedia to see a long list of hotels that you then go on, put your dates in, see the availability and the price, and then select your room. Actually, they've started rolling out their own like AI chat functionality that will essentially do the same process that we're talking about on Google and ChatGPT, but in Expedia itself. So those platforms are even trying to move people on to a slightly different way of experiencing that booking journey. So I think it's not just those LLM platforms and AI platforms that are starting to move the needle forward. I think the actual like big travel sites are also trying to move that tech stack on as well to push people into a slightly different journey and experience of booking.
Yeah, definitely. Laura, how do you think then going forward, as particularly a lot of it moves towards this singular, go ask a question, you could be booking the entire holiday experiences, restaurants, everything all in one space. How do you think brand building is going to have an impact on that? We know it's like one of the most important things that, we encourage people to focus on, but when people aren't making the decisions or necessarily needing to know who a brand is because they're just wildly trusting, say ChatGPT, how can we kind of get in front of that and try and push people more towards sort of, trust mechanisms or...
Yeah, I think brand building is just becoming more and more important. I think unless you're investing in those brand building tactics, you're not going to be in those conversations that are getting cited or surfaced in those platforms. So whilst people might not have, as strong a brand loyalty as they might have done a few years ago, you might have always gone to a specific travel agent or a specific brand for your holiday. It's now much more, I think people are experience-led of what they want from a holiday rather than going brand first. But without that brand building, you're not going to have that layer of trust that when you are surfaced and you are appearing, that people are going to go, yeah, I know who they are, I know what they're about, I know they're a trustworthy brand, so I'm comfortable like booking with them.
What do you think the split is now between brand building for search versus brand building for like user trust?
I think they're one and the same, if I'm honest. I don't think you can separate them out and put them in two different categories. They serve the same purpose. You're trying to build trust, whether that's with a end consumer or whether that's with a search platform and its algorithm. Both of those signals are the same.
So looking at socials as well, obviously we've talked already about how important creator-led content is in this space. What's your take on that, Laura? Like, where would you be looking to come at it if you were researching creators to work with and putting them into your strategies?
Yeah, it's something that we've done for travel clients and it works really, really well. I think when working with creators, it's about finding the right creators.
Yep.
So you want authentic partnerships, creators who make sense for the brand, who fit naturally and aren't going to kind of stand out in the feed. So the time to kind of source the right creators is kind of where a lot of the investment needs to be. And when you've found those creators, kind of working really collaboratively with them and giving them a brief, but also letting them create the content that fits their audience.
Yeah.
Creators for travel are so powerful. It's such a great kind of channel to use for travel because you're getting real world experiences through the creators. and they're creating this amazing content that, can be utilised in so many different ways. And I think a lot of people turn to social when they're planning trips, when they're researching. I know when I've looked for trips, as soon as you start engaging and saving content,
that is the feed.
You then get that on your feed, which is great, because again, that's where you discover things like, the Path of the Gods or whatever that might be, and that's quite often the creator content, and that's where they add that real value. And when working with them, like I said, if you find the right creators for the brand, it's such a powerful tool for getting content out there, but in a really natural and real way.
It's a strong authority signal as well, if you get the right creators. So I've done a lot of work on this with Sites Cottages. So making content for them based around the Yorkshire Dales, which is kind of like my niche across socials. So they approached me as an expert in the Yorkshire Dales to create them content that's based around, like I said, those hidden gems, walks you can go on, family friendly stuff. And it's not just that they want somebody there to go make it because it's easier. They actually want that person's face on it. They want that person, talking to the camera, and it's been a really, really successful strategy for them. They've done it right across the country, tapping into like smaller creators that have a niche in certain areas and using them to document stays, document things to do that you might not know about, or places to visit. So they're a really, really good example of a brand doing it well.
And it's that layer of trust again.
Yeah.
Because it's someone else saying the things for the brand.
Yeah.
It's not coming from the brand, it's coming from real people, and people trust real people and real recommendations, and that's a real power with creators.
Yeah, and people can see through it. Mm-hmm. You can tell if somebody's just been paid to do something and they're just saying, I went to stay here and it was great. Like, you can tell.
Yeah.
If it doesn't fit the feed, it's not going to feel genuine.
Yeah, and I think like micro creators as well, creators where they've got a more authentic audience and a smaller scale audience, a lot of the time tapping into them can be invaluable because they have a much more fiercely loyal and engaged audience than, influencers that have got several 100,000 followers potentially. So they can be great avenues to be able to tap into for travel brands. Definitely,
and I think that's a really good opportunity because also they're often very willing, they're very amenable, they're very up for a chat, They're not doing it full time, they're kind of just doing it as a bit of a hobby, and I think that love of what they're doing comes through in genuine content.
Yep.
And also a lot of brands then, not that as soon as you get to the creators that have tens of thousands of following, it's a huge investment at that point.
Yeah, it's, you could be spending the same as what you would on a TV ad.
Yep.
For some of these big partnerships. But like Andy said, with some of those niche creators, the engagement rates are way higher than some of those, huge creators that you'd be paying a lot more to work with. So it's looking at what do you want to get out of the partnership,
definitely.
And who do you want to reach, because some of those more niche creators have got a much stronger
I think you can be more
audience.
Controlled with the audience that you're targeting
exactly.
as well through
Definitely.
kind of more niche micro influencers and content creators. If you're going after large, almost like household name creators nowadays, actually their audience is so diverse that you're probably not going to be penetrating your core demographic in the way that you would through going with micro influencers. So it's definitely a strategy that's worthwhile for travel brands.
So Andy, you've been digging a lot into the data around
I have,
I'm not going to expect you to reel off a load of stats off the top of your head.
Thanks.
Don't worry.
Yeah, don't test me.
But what are we seeing across these platforms? How are we seeing, the change in how people search across the travel industry? How are we seeing that play out across the platforms and across the generations?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and to be honest, it's quite a complicated answer. But I guess a real short summary. ChatGPT and AI platforms are growing. I saw a stat, and I will reel one off, that the amount of sessions that they get across web and mobile apps are now at 56% of what Google gets in a year. which is huge growth in such a short space of time. And actually that younger demographics in particular are really trusting some of the recommendations and kind of sources of information that those platforms are reeling off. So, but the really interesting thing is that isn't taking away searches from platforms like Google. Actually, the pie's just getting bigger and people are diversifying how they search. Yeah. People aren't necessarily just moving from Google to a ChatGPT as an example. What they're doing is they're utilising both platforms harmoniously together for different parts of their journey that they're on. And I think that's very much where I'm seeing things, is that actually across the user funnel, different platforms kind of coming at different points. So some of the things that we've spoken about here, such as social and AI, very much top of funnel. It's research, it's information based, which naturally fits with those platforms. When we get down to conversion and somebody actually looking to book a piece of accommodation or book a table at a restaurant or book a flight, actually they're still most of the time going to search to find the site that they want to go and book that from. So that, I guess, is a very short answer.
A short answer of a very big thing that's happening right now. Yeah. Very big thing. And also literally just something that's changing daily. Yeah. Like we could talk about that 1 week and 2 weeks later have entirely different stats, have, you know, entirely different stories that go with it as well. Like, I think people need to not underestimate how quickly all of this is changing and how flexible you need to be with your strategy right now to adapt to these changes as well.
Definitely. I think it's like organic in particular, it's just an ecosystem. Organic isn't just Google. Organic is, and everything's interconnected. I mean, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all that content can be pulled, if it's an open profile, can be pulled into Google to serve in a traditional search result. So, you know, creating content for TikTok, because that's where demand lives at the top of funnel, and it's the right content for your brand, actually that might be pulled into Google and you'll still be served that content to a user that's actually searching on a totally different platform. So I think, you know, you can't really see it as individual strategies. It all has to be connected and work harmoniously together to deliver for you.
Laura, so coming back to sort of, you know, digital PR and the things that brands can be doing, have you got any of those sort of like real world examples, things you've worked on that have been more brand building campaigns, but have kind of, you know, spanned these different channels and brought great success for brands?
Yeah, so I think a good example is a cruise brand that we worked with. So they wanted to promote Royal Caribbean's new sailing routes, so the Mediterranean. And we actually went down the route of working with food creators.
Oh, Mediterranean food,
yeah. So we went down the food route, and that allowed us to reach a completely different audience for them. They'd not worked with any food creators. They'd not kind of explored food as a particular theme or topic before. And we built a whole microsite and campaign around Mediterranean food. And we had recipes on there from different locations that the cruise stopped at.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And we worked with people within the business to get really authentic recipes. So they weren't just recipes that you could find anywhere. Yeah. There was like a lasagna recipe that was, you know, someone's nonna, that was like multiple steps.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it was great. And we had kind of pictures and the history behind the recipes, and that was a really nice part of the microsite. And then we worked with food creators who got a nice little hamper and they cooked up these recipes. So then their content was the recipe creation, which again was natural for their audience because they were food creators. So it all worked really naturally in their feeds to have, cooking up a lasagna, for example. So that was a great way of reaching completely new audience, but through really authentic content for the creators. And as part of that, we had press activity and a press outreach campaign that ran alongside that, and also a competition which sat on social to win a
Amazing,
cruise.
Yeah.
So
God, everything going on.
Yeah, it all just worked really nicely together as one campaign, but with different elements and
so
lots
many
of
different platforms
and channels. which just gave us lots of different touch points to get that ultimately the message out that they had these new Mediterranean sailing routes, but in lots of different ways and lots of different platforms, and that was a really strong campaign for them, and saw some great results. And alongside that, we had really rich on-site content as well. So yeah, it all just worked really nicely around that main theme, and meant we could really build authority in that space.
And that was a really nice example as well of, you know, looking at those different platforms and how the content changes across each of them and tapping into the niches within that. I think, you know, it's just like sort of you said, Andy, there is this vast ecosystem, and although being present on every little bit of it isn't always possible and isn't always the best strategy, showing up in the places where it is relevant and where you know, have a decent audience is always going to work in your favour. So one thing I want to touch on a bit as well is paid and how ads play into the travel world and booking experience. What's your take on this, Andy?
So I think there's lots of different ad platforms that you can utilise within travel space. I mean, the obvious ones are like Google Ads, capture bottom of funnel demand. But I think there's some really interesting ad platforms that actually travel brands can utilise to really, one, drive brand awareness, but two, actually drive people to the site, get them to convert through an ad. And there's one in particular that I refer to as contextual programmatic display. So imagine you're on a travel blog and you're reading an article about, let's say the Amalfi Coast, just because I referenced that earlier, that you're reading about somebody that's visited the Amalfi Coast. What contextual programmatic could do from a travel brand is have your catalogue of destinations, and what it could do is it could pull in places that you have listed that person can stay in the Amalfi Coast. It will then understand that user's IP address, so it will reference the closest airport to that user. It can look up flight information through feeds and provide live flight prices from their local airport to the nearest airport to the Amalfi Coast, which in that instance would be Naples. So it becomes a really tailored, targeted ad.
That's amazing.
I've seen it used by the likes of like Jet2 before, where rather than just having a generic display ad, they're really tailoring it to the content that somebody's reading so that that click-through rate is much higher. And when I've done it before for brands, click-through rate has been PPC levels, CTR, not display levels, CTR, because it's so relevant to that
it's
user.
So niche, yeah. So you could be literally reading about a holiday on the Amalfi Coast and a button is there to just book the whole thing.
Pretty much, yeah, to take you through to a landing page where it's got somewhere to stay, it's got flights from your local airport priced up live in that display ad, so that you can see it. So it's super targeted.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm going to pull us back as well to travel agents. So obviously, like once upon a time in the travel world, I guess your success as a brand would often be determined by, you know, that real estate, how many travel agents you had on the ground, how many shops you had where people could come in physically. And that's very much now moved to a digital space where, you know, the real estate is how much you can take up across all these different platforms and whatever else. But I think one thing that, I know you mentioned it earlier, Laura, when you were talking about booking your holiday, that drew you into the travel agents, is that expert content and the trustworthiness of those first-hand experiences that travel agents bring.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's, for me, what set Trail Finders apart and why I booked a trip with them, because you get access to those experts and you kind of go in and you get matched with someone who has been to the destination that you're looking at, and you sit down with them and it's all personalised, it's all customised to you, but they're really adding that value because they've been to those destinations. Yeah. So
it's a little bit like the creators we said, where they're actually in there every day doing these experiences.
Yeah, they've been to the places. They can give you the little nuggets of information and the insight that you wouldn't find from Google or AI because they've been, you know, so recently. And for example, we booked and went to South Africa, and the lady who was booking our trip had been 3 months prior, she'd stayed at the same safari lodge, she'd done a very similar itinerary, and could recommend even things like restaurants to book that were on the garden route, and an elephant sanctuary that we'd never heard of and I hadn't come across on social or anywhere else when kind of researching. And it's those insights that set them apart, and I think that's where they've really carved out their space with the experts that they've got booking the holidays and kind of adding that value. And I think for digital brands, that's where you need to be adding the value. It's using your in-house experts as much as possible for things like on-site content, social content, the press content that you're putting out. So part of your PR strategy, can you put the PR agency in touch with those experts directly? Can you add, those real insights to the press content that you're putting out that you're not going to be able to find from anyone else? And again, that's part of that trust building, because you're adding value and really building that authority through the strategy online.
And I guess wherever you can, bringing them into it, whether it's video content across YouTube, whether it's, short form stuff on socials as well, not feeling like it has to be a huge PR piece that you bring your experts in for. They actually add value to, I would say, pretty much any piece you're putting out.
Yeah. And like I said, that's the content that people are going to be looking for. They're the questions that people are going to be asking online. And if you can answer those questions using an expert, it's great for the user, and it's also great for, as we know, those AI platforms who are favouring editorial content, they're favouring expert content. So it just works for all users at that point when you're utilising those experts wherever you can.
Yeah, 100%. Andy, you had a couple of really interesting stats that you were sort of mentioning to us earlier.
Yep, I'll try and remember them.
I've got them written down if you don't.
Thanks. So, I saw a really interesting piece around trust in AI, particularly within the travel sector. And McKinsey did a study that looked at AI usage within the travel sector. And they found that 90% of users of AI trust the recommendations being provided to them. Now, when it talks about trust, that is trust in terms of recommendations, kind of that top of funnel stuff. It's not trust in getting a visa or what to do in an emergency when you're abroad, or customer service kind of inquiries.
Still a very big number.
Yeah, I was really shocked by that. 90% is huge.
It's not often, I think, in digital spaces we see 90% given to anything in terms of trust.
But people really trust the recommendations that are being cited. So I think that's a sign, again, tying back into what we were saying about how it might evolve and how people might start to shift to AI. I think if people already trust the recommendations that they're being served within those platforms, actually, is it a giant leap for them to trust the platforms to book on their behalf or to complete an action on their behalf? Time will tell, but I don't think it's as big a leap as maybe we think it is.
I think as soon as you start seeing numbers like that, as soon as that data comes in front of you, suddenly that gap closes an awful lot.
Definitely.
Like we said, how often do you ever hear 90% trust in anything? If we were surveying something, post-campaign or whatever else, and we were getting those sorts of numbers, that would be wild.
Yeah. There was another one that I saw, which I think it was 20% of users of AI will complete end-to-end on AI, that they don't go to any other platform to change their journey. They will start with research on AI, they will go all the way through that journey on AI, and they will complete that final action, whatever that may be, on AI. Now, that isn't necessarily travel specific, that is all sectors.
Yeah.
I would imagine travel's slightly less than 20%, if I'm completely honest.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really interesting indicator that actually people are starting to adopt AI and starting to have that trust within it. Really interesting that it seems to be, in such a short space of time, a really trusted and well-used source already within that journey.
How much do you know around how long those interactions take? I know personally, I'll go back into, say, whatever I'm using, like ChatGPT or whatever, and look back for the last conversation I had and then just carry it on, and it might be 2 weeks later, or it might be a week later, it might be the next day. How are we seeing those journeys play out? are a lot of the conversations just one interaction over the space of 5 minutes? Is it things people are returning to like continue what they're doing and keep that moving?
I think with any, particularly a holiday, I think because it's such a considered purchase and a big ticket item that you're purchasing,
Yeah.
I think that journey isn't just, an hour of research and booking. Often people spend weeks or months planning their trip before they actually book it and decide to take that final step.
I can change my mind like 4 times.
Yeah, and I think that's no different with platforms like AI or social. People are going to these different platforms to look for content, to look for recommendations for a long period of time before they even start to kind of go on that final booking journey. So somebody might go to ChatGPT and then 2 weeks later go to organic social, then a week later go back to ChatGPT, then a week later go to Google to look for information. It's quite a convoluted journey, and it certainly isn't over and done with in a very short space of time.
Definitely not.
I guess that's where it comes back to the brand building as well, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you need to be consistently building that.
Yeah. So when they do finally get to that point where, right, do you know what? I'm ready to book now after 2 months of research.
Yeah, exactly.
Who am I going to go with?
Yeah.
And you want to be the person that they think of straight away. The other one you mentioned was the SEMrush stat.
Yes.
Do you want me to tell you it?
Yeah, I'd love you to, because my mind's gone blank.
So 47% of people narrow down
Yes, I remember this now.
using an LLM or an AI tool.
Yeah.
And then they go to Google to book.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's nearly 1 in 2 people are going to an AI platform to research before they then go to Google. There's some other interesting bits in that study as well. It looks at how people engage with AI and search collectively. And I think, again, roughly about 30% of people are utilising AI to research and then going off to platforms like social and search to continue that research, not necessarily just convert, but they're utilising multiple different places to find information and to seek an answer. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting piece of data, that. And again, it shows, again, the trust that people are placing in those AI platforms in that top of funnel to actually provide recommendations and insight to them in quite a succinct and easily digestible way. People aren't necessarily having to read, huge blogs on travel sites. They're not having to search for a long period through Google before they find a site that gives them the information they want. They're essentially having a summarized version that's helping them make a decision or impart some form of knowledge or answer a question immediately in a very succinct way, which, I think is interesting. It's a time saver for a lot of people as well.
I think that's it. I think that is the other thing, that are people busy, or is it just that we've got so many more things being thrown in our face that everything needs to be quicker? Everything needs to be quicker. Everything needs to be a little bit more to the point, and brands do need to understand that. Like, storytelling is super important and it's not going anywhere, but how you get that story across has to be done very differently to how it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And where you're doing it is also hugely important.
Yeah.
I'm going to finish us off with a little quick fire round. So they're kind of just like this or that questions.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it's only short. TikTok or Google for travel inspiration?
Probably TikTok, to be honest.
I would say TikTok as well, yeah.
I'd definitely be TikTok. An AI itinerary or a travel agent?
I would go to AI just because I don't think I'd ever set foot in a travel agency.
Me too. I've never been to a travel
I was saying to Laura earlier, my local travel agent, I drive past it all the time and I've never seen anyone in there.
Yeah.
I don't know how the high street travel agent survives, if I'm honest, nowadays.
Weirdly, one's just opened in our village.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it like a bespoke?
It's like an
travel agent?
independent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's just like a single person that does it.
Mine is the big chain
Is it?
travel agent, and I don't know how it survives, but I would definitely go to AI for an itinerary.
Yeah, me too.
See, I would do both.
Yeah.
I would, for certain holidays, go AI. And I think there's still the place for the trail finders of the world, where you can go in and speak to someone and get that level of personalisation and insight that you wouldn't get from AI currently.
Interesting. Reddit or TripAdvisor?
It's an interesting one.
Mm.
I actually don't know the last time I looked at TripAdvisor. And I also feel like TripAdvisor's got a bit of a bad rap now, that people just go on there to complain.
Yeah.
So I'd probably go
Most
to Reddit
review
if I'm
sites
honest.
they do, yeah. I think the thing you've got with Reddit is TripAdvisor now, if somebody complains, then the owner of that place will just go on and give you all the reasons that it was wrong. Whereas actually what you have on Reddit is the people that support your business or have good stuff to say about the business are in the comments of the post that might be slagging you off. So you've actually got like community support within that. I mean, if you're a decent business, that is. You might just have loads of people slagging you off.
Yeah. I think when I was planning my Japan trip as well, I actually used AI for some of those.
Mm-hmm.
So asking comparisons for hotels.
Interesting.
Which, I used quite a bit to see what the sentiment was for certain hotels.
Did it tell you where it's pulling the data from?
Yeah, and it was pulling quite a lot of Reddit data.
Mm. Interesting.
So whilst I didn't go direct to Reddit, I guess it was, sourcing a lot of Reddit data when I was asking.
I'd be interested to see how that percentage has shifted from people writing, say, Google reviews or TripAdvisor reviews versus posting on Reddit.
Yeah, I think Reddit has been growing in user base every single month. I think probably like 3 or 4 months ago at the back end of last year, in the US, it overtook Facebook as the second most visited platform after Google, which is huge. And it's a totally different type of experience to what you have anywhere else, because it's not bombarded with brands yet, being the key word there, yet. It feels really authentic, and it feels like you're actually getting real life user opinions, which I think is why it's so popular. And again, that's why it's pulled into AI, because it's seen as
it's real life, isn't it?
Fairly reliable real world opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there were things that I found through AI but was pulling from Reddit that I hadn't seen on social, for example, whereas a lot of the other things that I was looking at were there on social.
Yeah. Leads nice on to the next one. Create a vlog or hotel website?
Create a vlog for me.
Same,
Yeah. I think the one that's become particularly popular, like within this space, is those like, tours of a hotel where it is that first-hand view of what's going on. There's actually a really, really big space for this for cruises. Mm-hmm. These people that basically live on a cruise and spend the whole time filming every single aspect of it. Like, the videos are so in-depth, it's literally like, this is how good the toilet flush is. Like, they're so specific and so niche. Yeah. But it's that like unfiltered real life. This is actually what it's going to feel like to be in the space, rather than that polished website. Yeah.
Also, if you go to a hotel's website, all those pictures are from before it was populated with guests.
Before anybody had stayed there.
The wear and tear.
Yeah.
10 years of guests staying there.
Yeah. 100%.
When you actually go, a lot of the time, they're not quite as polished and perfect as they maybe look on those pictures.
No, definitely not. Last one. Package holiday or DIY trip?
DIY trip. I don't like the idea of being confined to a package holiday.
I'm a bit of both. Like, I've never in my life done like an all-inclusive. Couldn't think of anything worse. But also, like, we've just booked one, haven't we, Laura? Like a Jet2 weekend where your flights are included, the hotel's included, and it was just easy.
Yeah.
And it was, I think we compared like the two, like booking flights and accommodation versus like, and it was cheaper. Like, let's just do that. Don't have to think about anything.
Yeah, we looked at DIY, we looked at, Skyscanner and Airbnb, and Jet2 was cheaper, had
it was
more
also
options.
like, can we just book this? I can't be asked to think about it anymore.
Took a lot less brain space. Generally I think DIY.
Yeah. I think it kind of depends on the holiday.
I guess it depends what you want, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
If you're into, all-inclusive, you want to, relax by a pool for a week, then, package probably is the way to go.
But I've only booked a couple, but, often I'd pick, like, you can do it where an apartment's included rather than a hotel. So you kind of still get that, like, Airbnb,
Yeah.
but it's all done. It's all in one app. It's
Yeah.
not like multiple emails you have to check or whatever else. It's like, oh, let's just do it that way.
Yeah.
I'm all for an easy life.
Yeah. And there's certain, again, I think, coming back to trust, I think for some people, booking a package holiday where everything is almost protected and included in
Yeah,
one,
I think that's a big one.
one package
Really
is a big
one.
thing for people. And
The protection,
you know,
Yeah.
the ease of if anything changed or you needed to change anything,
Mm-hmm.
cancel anything, that is still a huge draw for a lot of people. And we were talking about kind of current
Yeah.
flight situations
Yeah,
and
that's
things
it.
that are going on. There's certainly would be more complicated for certain things if you'd booked it all.
If you had a package
Independently.
holiday to Dubai,
Exactly.
I think it would be a lot easier to get your money back right now than it would booking it all individually.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that leans a little bit into crisis management and how you deal with that from a PR point of view, which again for travel is a huge area of consideration, and how you deal with those situations that you can't plan for.
Which kind of knows. But I mean, like, think of COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nobody saw that coming the year before.
No, definitely not. And I don't think any travel brand had ever really sat down and thought, this is something that could happen.
Yeah.
Let's plan for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Very nice. Well, thank you both for joining us.
Pleasure.
We're going into a lot more depth on this in our webinar, which is coming up towards the end of this month. I think it's the 26th, I want to say.
It is, yep.
26th of March,
Yep,
if I'm right.
it is the 26th.
We're going to be diving into a lot of data. So we've pulled an awful lot from SimilarWeb, analysing user behaviour and platform visits.
I think we're about 1.5 billion platform
All right,
visits
just
that
a
we've
few then.
analysed. Yeah, so, yeah, just a small number.
Yeah, so there's a hell of a lot of data to go into. So we're going to be expanding on this a little bit more in that session. So, yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be a good one.
Thank you very much.
Great. Cheers.
Thanks.